Living longer, living healthier, living better than ever before. Welcome to Mountain Pacific's Healthy Living for Life, a weekly series that gives you the information, education, and expert insight you need to become an active participant in today's ever-changing healthcare climate. Here now is today's program host.
In the United States, more than 118,000 people are waiting for an organ transplant, and every day 22 people die waiting. You could save or improve as many as 50 lives through organ and tissue donation. Today we'll address some myths surrounding organ donation in the hopes that if you aren't already a donor, you'll consider becoming one. I'm Beth Brown. Welcome to Healthy Living for Life, a show dedicated to helping you do just that. We'll be right back. Welcome back. My first guest comes to us from Life Center Northwest. Please welcome Nicole Weir. Nicole, thanks so much for being here with us this morning.
Thank you for having me.
Can we just start talking about what exactly is organ and tissue donation, and why is it so important?
Yeah, organ and tissue donation is extremely important, as right now there are over 118,000 people waiting for a life-saving transplant, and sadly 22 of those people die every day not receiving that gift. So organ and tissue donation comes at a sad time in a family's life, but it allows for a living legacy for someone who has passed away.
Mm-hmm. And this probably seems like an odd question, but it's not as simple as it sounds. How do doctors determine whether a patient is dead?
Absolutely. It's not a simple question, but there are two different ways that a physician or hospital provider can determine that someone is deceased. The first is through cardiac death. That is legal definition of death when the heart has ceased beating. The second legal definition of death is brain death, and that is when the brain in its entirety, so meaning the entire brain as well as the brain stem, has irreversibly and permanently quit.
Okay. And is brain death the same thing as someone being comatose?
It is not. So in a comatose patient, often there is still brain activity happening. It's generally just a deep state of unconsciousness. It can be reversed or reversed in some type of manner, where legal brain death, again, it's irreversible, it's permanent, there is no brain activity. A patient is no longer even able to breathe on their own.
Okay, so going back to organ donation, nearly 2/3 of people in Wyoming have made the decision to register as organ, eye, and tissue donors. How does Montana compare to that rate?
So right now, Montana is ranked #1 in the United States for registered donors.
That's great.
So yeah, currently our statistic is 90% of the population age 18 and older is registered as an organ, tissue, and cornea donor.
Wonderful. And so are there age limits or certain medical restrictions that people should know about that maybe wouldn't make them able to donate organ or tissue?
Yeah, we really don't want people to even think about that. We don't ever want a family to worry in their time, or a person worry about themselves that they're too old, too sick, too young. We really just want people to make that decision that they want to become a donor and to let their wishes be known to their family. And we as the medical team will determine suitability at that time.
Okay, great. Do you know, are there certain religions that maybe aren't as comfortable with the idea of organ or tissue donation? So
generally, most major religions support donation. They view it really as one of the greatest acts of giving that can be done. We do encourage, if someone has questions about their religious community or their faith, that they just talk to one of their spiritual leaders and get advisement directly from them.
Okay. Another thing too that I know people are concerned about or talk about is that if somebody needs an organ and they're a celebrity or they have a lot of money, they're automatically going to move up the list. Is that correct? Does that really happen?
It does not really happen.
Okay.
The list it's very detailed how it works. Just to even get listed for a transplant takes an entire team of individuals, from transplant surgeons to physicians to hospital staff, to determine that someone can even be eligible for a transplant. And only at the time that a donation opportunity is currently taking place will the list even be known to us.
Okay. And so folks that are in the moment trying to help keep somebody alive, they don't have access to that list, right?
That's correct.
Okay, perfect. And then this is sort of a tricky question too, but for people that want their loved one to have an open casket at the funeral and they're considering organ donation, can they still have an open casket if they allow that person to donate organ and tissue?
Absolutely, and that's a great question. We hear that a lot. An open casket, a viewing, all of that is still able to take place even after organ and tissue donation. The patient is treated with the utmost dignity and respect as they deserve for being a hero. And it's really no different than any other type of surgical procedure that would take place on a patient.
Okay. And I don't know if you have ever heard of any other concerns that folks might have that maybe would cause them pause to allow their loved one to be a donor. Have you heard other people that would say, oh, I would, but do you have any examples of things like that?
I think, the question you had just now is the main one. I think, one of the other ones, I think people worry so much that there could be a line in the sand of saving my loved one and fighting for donation. Mm-hmm. And I always want to be very clear that does not happen. No one comes into a hospital and hospital personnel reaching for a driver's license to see if this patient's a registered donor, and none of that happens, nor does it take the lead of that patient's care in a hospital setting. And I think that's a huge myth that I really want to put out there, that it just doesn't take place.
Okay, great. That's good to know. And can we go back a little bit and just talk about your organization and what exactly Life Center does?
Yeah, so Life Center is a federally designated nonprofit organ procurement organization as well as a tissue recovery agency. And so we work to serve the families in our communities, which stretch from Alaska, Washington, Northern Idaho, and Montana, as well as the partner hospitals, to serve the families who may have loved ones who have the potential to become a donor.
Okay, great. And you're going to stay with us. We need to take a break. So we'll pause here for just a few short messages, and then we'll continue this conversation right after this. Please stay with us. Welcome back. We're talking to Nicole Weir with Life Center Northwest about organ and tissue donation. And Nicole, we talked a little bit last segment about some of the myths that are around organ donation and what people hear about things. Here's another one for you. Some people are worried that if they give the okay for their loved one to be an organ donation, the medical team isn't going to work as hard to save them so that they can be a donor for somebody who needs those organs. Can you speak to that a little bit? Is there any truth in that?
There is no truth to that, but I do agree. I think that's definitely a perception that is out there. I can tell you that the medical team has one thing on their mind. I think all providers and nursing staff have one thing on their mind, and that is to save your life and to do everything that they can to care for you as their patient. Donation is only an option when all other medical treatments have failed. So when a patient is legally declared dead is when donation can be an option. So I think everyone can feel confident in their local community hospitals and the places that they go to seek treatment that donation is never going to precede healthcare.
Good. Okay, so let's talk a little bit about if someone is in that moment and they have advanced directives in place, especially a do not resuscitate, how does that play into the whole organ donation process?
Yeah, so a DNR, do not resuscitate, or an advance directive can still stand and take place alongside organ donation. They can mutually work together. They are both mutually respected. In fact, making the decision to become an organ donor by registering as a donor, that's really no different than an advance directive. So it's essentially the same thing. It's making your wishes known. It is legally binding. Being registered as a donor is legal binding first person authorization. Okay. So again, they're mutually respected and can go hand in hand through the opportunity.
Can you talk a little bit about what organs we're talking about here? Which organs can be donated after death?
So solid organs that can be donated would be the heart, the lungs, liver, kidneys, pancreas, and small intestine. And then alongside that, tissue can also be donated, and some examples for tissue donation would be bone, skin, heart for valves, nerves, veins, tendons, and ligaments.
So a lot.
Yes, ma'am.
And we talked a little bit too about that first person authorization. So let's say that I am a donor, I've agreed to be a donor. What will happen with my family then as far as that process? Is that a medical expense that they need to cover that I've donated my organs or my tissue?
So families will incur no costs associated with donation. Now keep in mind that the medical treatment and care that happened prior to donation becoming an opportunity does still stay as the responsibility of the family. However, all costs associated with the donation process and the recovery process are the responsibility of the local organ procurement organization. So Life Center Northwest, for example, here in Montana.
Okay. Let's talk about one more myth here. Another one that people may have heard about is the whole idea of people selling organs on the black market. Is that a thing?
It is not, and unfortunately movies and drama have done us no favors in some of that. No, it is a federal offense to sell or transplant organs over the black market. It needs to be facilitated by a medical team, and really it's a very complex procedure. It's a complex algorithm of how we even get there. But no, it is a federal offense to do that.
Okay. And so let's talk a little bit to going back to the idea of the family and what they have to do in this sort of situation. Obviously, death is hard. Losing someone that you love is hard on the family. Does knowing that their loved one is contributing to the health or saving other people help with that whole hurt and loss that happens with them?
Absolutely. Death is hard. Nothing's going to change that. And really, it doesn't matter the age of the person who's passed away, whether it's an extended illness or trauma, tragedy. Death is hard, and there is no time, frame for grief. But I think what we see and what I have seen firsthand is the comfort that donation can bring, knowing that there's a living legacy, that their loved one didn't die in any type of vein, that there's something left behind, there's a story to keep telling. And aside from that, we as an organization bring a team of family support individuals into a donation opportunity that can be there to support the family through their grief so that they're getting special attention, they're getting memory making opportunities, things that maybe otherwise wouldn't even be an opportunity or an option. And after the donation opportunity takes place, we have an amazing aftercare program. And the idea of that is, again, there's no time frame for grief. So the bereavement process goes on, and sometimes it's harder days and months later than it is in the moment. So we're there to support our families for an extended period of time through the donation and through the consent of donation. Oftentimes if we receive a family who maybe initially is offered the option of donation and we get a very quick no, oftentimes it's about just giving a family time to understand death. Saying no to death is easiest, right? That's what we all want. We don't want to accept that our loved one is dying or has passed. So taking a family who is saying no to death and allowing us to help them understand, I think is first and foremost how we can provide comfort to the family in the time of need. And then moving from there, once they can accept death, into the options that they have, again, for a living legacy for their loved one.
That's really great. And you, again, going back to that first person authorization that you mentioned, if someone has said, yes, I'm a donor, but the family struggles with that, how do you handle that situation?
Again, I think it's really a family saying no to death. Our goal is not to traumatize anyone any further in this process by throwing up a wall and saying, I'm sorry. What our job is to, again, alongside of an advance directive, let them know what their loved one's wishes were and then facilitate the process from there.
Perfect. And we're almost out of time, but really quickly, can you just let us know if someone wants to become a donor, what do they do?
Quick 3 things you can do. You can, when you go to renew your driver's license at the DMV, make sure you check the box that says yes. You can go to our website, lcnw.org. You can sign up through us, as well as request a brochure through our 877 number. We'll be happy to send that to you and take care of it.
Perfect. Thank you so much, Nicole. And we just want to make sure that you at home understand that Life Center doesn't facilitate living donations, but live donations such as blood, bone marrow, kidney, or partial liver are also important to saving or improving lives. To find out more about that, you can go to UNOS or Donate Life websites. Thanks so much, Nicole. Next, we'll talk to a family whose loved one became a donor after death. Stay tuned. We're joined now by Derek Shepard, who, along with his wife, were faced with a tough decision in the midst of terrible tragedy. Before we talk about their daughter Julie's organ donation, though, we're going to take a minute to get to know a little bit about who she was. Julie was a smart, beautiful, strong young woman with an amazing sense of humor. Her family is still finding out about all of the lives she touched through her kindness, like a nonverbal autistic child who would visit Julie at work just to see her smile, like her teachers who talked about how she lit up the school with her energy and her humor. Julie loved the outdoors. She was athletic and highly competitive. She still holds state records for high school powerlifting, and she was a standout athlete on her high school and travel softball teams. The people who knew Julie were shocked to learn she struggled with severe depression. Although she talked to a therapist and a psychiatrist and took her medication every day, she still suffered deep, dark periods of depression where her mind told her she was not loved, no one liked her, she was worthless, and no one cared. Although her room was filled with pictures of friends and family, her mind controlled her reality, and she was unable to endure the darkness of her depression any longer. So Derek, thanks so much for being willing to be here with us today and to share your story. So Julie was hospitalized at the age of 17, and in the midst of all that, you were approached about organ donation. Can you start out by talking about what was going on and how you felt at that time?
Yeah, absolutely. It was a real roller coaster of emotions. But it's just a difficult time in that all you're doing is thinking of hope. You're thinking tomorrow everything's going to be okay. Next week everything's going to be okay or something, and you're going to be home and your loved one's going to be with you, and the doctors are going to do everything and they're going to save their life. And then the team came in to talk to us about organ donation, and they did a great job. They really did. And we really appreciate that they opened the topic with us, but it is so hard to hear when you have a loved one in the hospital, particularly a child, because everything that you're thinking at that time is that everything's going to be okay. And when they start talking about organ donation, you have to open your mind to the possibility that things may not be okay. And that, is so hard to hear at the time, although I'm so glad they did it, because, although Julie passed away, because we were able to get everything done correctly and in timely manner, she was able to help so many other people.
So the first folks to approach you was the medical team. Can you talk a little bit about what they said to you? How did they approach that topic?
And I don't remember specifically, and I wish I could remember their names, because they did a great job, and they were very sympathetic and soft about it. And they talked about the opportunity to help Julie, or for Julie to help other people, and they told us that they were going to do everything they could to save Julie, but that if things didn't go well, they had to start getting things organized because of everything that has to happen for organ donation. That they had to at least talk to us about it, and that gave us time to think about it and consider it. And although it was a fairly easy decision for us because of our daughter and who she was, we were glad we had a little time to process it.
Do you remember at what point in the process Life Center entered into that conversation?
The staff was there actually the next day. I had gone home to talk to our other kids about the situation, and when I returned the next day, they were there early in the morning, and they really did a great job. They were very sympathetic to our situation and understanding, and again, very soft about what was, what we needed to do, what we needed to know, and they explained the process to us, which to me is amazing. When you start talking about the logistics of what has to happen for organ donation, I mean, you think it's a simple thing of getting an organ and transplanting it, but they have to find a match, and then they have to find a match for specific organs, and then they have to get a hold of that person. Are they on vacation? Are they out of reach? And can they get to the hospital? Are they healthy? Do they have a fever? They can't do it in those situations. Mm-hmm. Then they have to get a hospital lined up. They have to get the doctors lined up. They have to have a room and an operating room. All the stuff that has to happen for each organ, and they did that in a couple of days, and I was just amazed by it.
Do you know how many lives were saved because of Julie's gift?
She changed 8 lives, I would say. She gave sight to 2 people, and she probably saved 6 lives with organs like heart and lungs.
Have you been in touch with any of the people that received those gifts?
Yes, 2 of the people. The gentleman who received both of Julie's lungs has contacted us and told us how well he's doing. And we stay in close contact with the family that received Julie's heart.
That's great.
Which has been, the heart is just special. So.
Yeah, that's awesome. So in hearing a little bit about your story, you use the term a lot, donor family. So it wasn't just about Julie's gift. This was really part of your whole family, a decision you all had to make. Can you talk a little bit about what you mean by being a donor family?
The whole process really does affect the whole family because it's a real roller coaster ride. You're so sad that you lost a loved one, but then you hear about the lives that she was able to save, and then you're happy about it and you're proud about it, but then you're so sad that you lost them, and these emotions are tied together. You can't separate them out, and so they just kind of roll around. You kind of go from happy and proud to sad and disappointed and all of that. But that being said, I would much rather have that little bit of good in all the bad that comes with her loss.
Thank you. Thank you so much for sharing your story. We really appreciate you being here today. We're out of time. Every 10 minutes, another name is added to the nation's waiting list for organ transplant. Please consider becoming a donor if you aren't already one. It's the most valuable legacy you can leave behind. I want to thank all my guests, and we'll see you next week. In the meantime, stay fit, stay well, and stay healthy for life with Healthy Living for Life.
Healthy Living for Life is brought to you by Mountain Pacific Quality Health. We'd love to hear from you. If you have suggestions for future programs, visit our website at mpqhf.org or call us at 406-443-4020. You can also catch us on YouTube by visiting our website and clicking on the YouTube icon. Special thanks to Fire Tower Coffee House and Roasters. Production facilities provided by Video Express Productions.